Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. University of California medical workers say their pay has not kept pace with the high cost of living. KPBS reporter Tammy Murga spoke with some who walked off the job today as part of the statewide strike.
Making rent has been a challenge for Michael Ammons. He's a medical biller at UC San Diego Medical Center.
Personally, I am one paycheck away from being evicted because my low wages don't afford the cost of living here in San Diego.
Ammons is one of tens of thousands of UC medical workers across California who are on strike through tomorrow. At Hillcrest Medical Center, hundreds of custodians, food service workers, and patient care technicians rallied Monday.
We're out here on an economic strike because of UC's failure to address the affordability crisis that our workers are facing or struggling to survive.
Their union contract ended more than a year ago. Negotiations have been ongoing since. UC says it has increased pay to at least $25 an hour and some money to pay for medical care. But the union says UC can do more.
You got to look at affordability through the totality of what it is. What are my wages worth in terms of purchasing power? How much is my health insurance going up?
It's unclear how the two-day strike will affect patients. KPBS spoke to some patients who did not want to be identified. One said his appointment for a CT scan was rescheduled. Another said his post-surgery care has gone without disruption. Emmons says the union gave UC 10 days' notice about the strike. UC says it has plans in place to minimize the impact on patients. Its facilities are expected to remain open. Tammy Murga, KPBS News.
And we saw plenty of rain across the county this weekend, but all that rainfall didn't pack as much of a punch as anticipated when it comes to flooding and other related impacts. Our media partner, KGTV, spoke with a geologist to find out why that was the case. He says the rate of the rainfall had a lot to do with it. He says compared to downpours in recent years, this weekend's rain fell gently over many hours.
Those kind don't really usually cause any problems. If the rain had come down in torrents, it would have washed off a lot of the soil on these burnt slopes like this, and it would have been messy and a lot of debris flows coming out on the road. You can think back over recent years where we had ultra rainy years, how many beach cliff collapses we had and landslides we had. We're not going to have that yet.
And Pat Abbott says the potential for more slope instabilities increases as we see more rain on the horizon.
Weather headlines here as we head throughout the next couple of days. Overall, I am tracking more rain chances in the forecast, so that means we're going to see an elevated risk of flash flooding continuing as well. But after that, overall, we're going to be in a mild but breezy weather pattern here as we head throughout the next couple of days. But the best news of all is that I am tracking a pretty nice rebound here for the weekend. I'll have an updated look at that extended forecast coming up.
The Trump administration is considering making its June travel ban retroactive to immigrants already legally in the United States. KPBS military and veterans reporter Andrew Dyer says this includes tens of thousands of Afghan refugees.
The draft policy would affect green card applicants and asylum seekers from countries on the list, which is mostly those in Africa and the Middle East. What's unusual about the policy is that it would apply to people already vetted, screened, and approved to be in the U.S.
These are folks who are fleeing persecution.
Sean Van Diver is the president and co-founder of San Diego-based Afghan EVAC, a nonprofit that advocates for the U.S.'s former allies from Afghanistan.
Some of whom came here as refugees, some of whom are wartime allies that were flown here by the United States government and told, hang out for a second, you'll get through our immigration process, and you'll have your shot at the American dream.
He spoke to us from Washington, D.C., where he's meeting with lawmakers to rally opposition to the policy change.
We're running around today meeting with Republican senators and their staff, as well as Democratic senators and their staff, and committee staff on judiciary, on armed services, on foreign relations.
According to a report last week in the New York Times, being from one of the countries in the travel ban would weigh as a significant negative factor by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services on green card and asylum applications. The policy would apply to the tens of thousands of Afghans who came to the U.S. after the country fell to the Taliban in 2021. Many of them are here on temporary status or humanitarian parole, two policies Trump ended this spring.
What we're worried about is that USCIS will use this to force people who could be out of limbo into a permanent limbo or even worse, deportation from our country after having made it here.
Policy is being considered amid other drastic changes to the country's asylum system. Last month, the administration announced it would only accept 7,500 refugees this year, with priority given to white South Africans. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
As the Trump administration continues its aggressive mass deportation campaign, immigration lawyers are increasingly turning to a law that founding fathers established to protect against a king. KPBS reporter Gustavo Solis explains why the use of habeas corpus petitions has skyrocketed in recent months.
All right, hear me out. The Trump administration is using this thing called the Bureau of Immigration Appeals to rewrite the rules of immigration detention and deport as many people as possible. But there's a group of lawyers who are filing these federal lawsuits called writ of habeas corpus petitions who are trying to get the people out of jail and give them their freedom. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not crazy. And no, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's another episode of The Border Brief. We are, right now, in the middle of a massive legal fight playing out in federal courtrooms all over the country. On the one side, you have the full force of the most powerful government in the planet spending billions of dollars on mass arrests and making it almost impossible for people to get out on bond or parole. On the other, you have individual lawyers filing thousands of federal lawsuits that essentially accuse the government of illegal and indefinite detentions. Now, to understand this fight, it's important to know how the Trump administration has rewritten the rules of immigration detention. Let's start with how the immigration court system is set up. Now, it's not part of the federal court system, which is under the judicial branch and has independent judges. Immigration courts are under the executive branch, and specifically under the Department of Justice, which means that the Attorney General has the power to hire and fire immigration judges. The Attorney General can also use this administrative part of the court system, the Board of Immigration Appeals, to change the way judges interpret immigration law. For example, this BIA decision changed the rules so that immigration judges cannot even hear a bond request in certain cases. Now, these leaves immigrants in detention with few options. If you cannot get a hearing for a bond or get out on parole, you're essentially stuck in detention. Now, one of the lawyers I talked to has a client who was granted bond, paid the bond, but still was not allowed to leave. So now, instead of seeking relief in the immigration court system, lawyers are turning to the federal courts. And they're filing these lawsuits known as writ of habeas corpus petitions that essentially say the federal government cannot keep them detained indefinitely without giving them a chance to get out. Now, for a bit of historical context, the founding fathers put habeas corpus protections into the Constitution as a direct response to British oppression. During the American Revolution, British soldiers used general warrants to raid people's homes without probable cause. And they also threw people in jail without giving them a hearing for their release. And now, almost 250 years later, immigration lawyers are using that same legal protection to challenge Trump's mass deportation campaign. Collectively, lawyers have filed more than 4,000 habeas petitions in federal courts all over the country. And most of that has been in the last 2 months. For example, right here in the Southern District of California, lawyers filed just one petition in January and more than 70 in October. Now, we recently published a 2-part series on this. Make sure you check it out at kpbs.org. And as always, thanks for watching The Border Brief. Please send us any questions or suggestions for future episodes.
KPBS reached out to the U.S. Department of Justice with questions regarding lawyers' claims and the surge in habeas petitions. A DOJ spokesperson responded with the following statement. President Trump and the Department of Justice will continue to enforce the law as it is written to defend and protect the safety and security of the American people.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump does a 180 on the House vote to release the Epstein files. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A lot will be at stake in next year's midterm elections, including control of the House of Representatives and Senate. For this week's Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego's Scott Lewis explains how San Diego residents may have to decide on a few measures that will more immediately impact their bank accounts.
Elected officials are deciding now what could be on the ballot next year, and at least 3 different tax measures are moving forward. We recently talked about one the San Diego City Council is considering putting on the ballot, and that's the vacation rental second home tax. Council member Sean Elo Rivera is proposing an annual tax of up to $5,000 per bedroom for vacant second homes or vacation rentals. He wants it on the June primary ballot, just 7 months from now. In part, supporters think that will be easier for it to pass than if it were on the general election ballot in November, where there could be at least 2 other tax proposals, which brings us to another city sales tax. In the city of San Diego, a coalition of labor unions is pushing to place a 1-cent sales tax measure on the ballot. It would generate an estimated $400 million annually to fund infrastructure repairs, wildfire prevention, water pipe, and sewer upgrades. The money would also keep libraries, rec centers, and city services fully staffed. That's what they say. If it sounds familiar, it's because voters narrowly rejected the same measure in 2024, and the polling is not going well for this new version. It may compete with the county revenue measure. The 3 Democrats on the San Diego County Board of Supervisors have launched a study to determine whether to ask voters for a new tax measure in 2026. They set up closed-door subcommittees at the county so that they use county funds to do the research. They have not yet decided, or at least announced, what kind of tax they want to pursue. They are calling it, in a poll, the San Diego County Healthcare Emergency Response Child Care and Clean Water Funding Measure, which would be a half-cent sales tax. That, of course, was in a poll. Opponents argue the cost of living is already too high and worry about adding yet another tax burden on lower and middle income residents. You're likely to hear a lot more about these proposals in coming months. For Voice San Diego, I'm Scott Lewis, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. Imagine your partner popped the question and you've said yes, but now the question is, how much will the wedding cost? Maribel Gonzalez reports on how President Trump's trade agenda may factor into rising costs of many matrimony traditions.
There's no denying it. Getting married costs money.
On average, in the U.S., weddings are $33,000.
That's an increase of 18% over the last 5 years, according to the Knot. Today, tariffs are adding to the price hike.
A third of couples were worried about tariffs when it comes to their budget and their plans.
With tariff rates as high as 50% for some countries, small businesses are struggling.
I spent a lot of money on like chocolate, which I buy from Belgium. I buy Callebaut chocolate. I noticed it went from $44 for 5.5 pounds to $78.
Armana Christensen owns 8 Cakes Bakery in Phoenix, Arizona. She says one cake can have up to a dozen ingredients, all sourced from different countries with varying tariff rates.
This year, I've been reevaluating my pricing every 3 to 6 months. When things are changing this much and this often, it's just really hard to keep track. And then, of course, I just don't want to continually lose money.
Beyond the cake,
They hire 14 vendors on average.
From the engagement ring to the food, florals, and the dress, each item is touched by tariffs.
Couples are really prioritizing what matters most, and then vendors can be creative about how to get there.
Despite the economic uncertainty, the wedding industry is holding strong.
People are so craving connection, celebration, that they continue to prioritize it above all else.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
Despite the government shutdown being over and air travel returning to normal, many local families are choosing to take the more affordable route. Instead of traveling away, many are opting to stay in San Diego for the holidays. Data from NerdWallet shows nearly $311 billion will be spent on flights and hotels this holiday season. It's an expense nearly 56% of Americans will be cutting back on, like Linda Bouchard.
Beach is one, and you can come to Balboa Park and not spend a dime if you don't want to. You can just walk around and look at nature. They've been having the best time. We had our backpack full of things and drinks and water, and we're good to go.
And if you'd like to treat your family to a staycation, here are some ideas for you. You can catch free Oregon concerts at the Oregon Pavilion in Balboa Park. You can also check out historic buildings in Old Town, and that's free. Local hotels are also offering special holiday activities for Black Friday and for Cyber Monday. This Saturday, the Comic-Con Museum not only has exhibits on Doctor Who and luchadors, but also a pair of panels to enlighten you about Marvel's Daredevil and comics in many forms. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has this preview.
This Saturday, the Comic-Con Museum will host a pair of panels. First up is Comics in Many Forms, organized by San Diego State University's Center for Comic Studies. The panel will compare English-language comics with ones from France, Italy, and Japan. Antonia Iannota is one of the panelists.
Italian comics are called fumetti, and so the word fumetto comes from fumo, that is the smoke of the balloon that comes from visually, that comes from, the mouth of the speaker.
Iannota sees fumetti as the medium closest to film because it asks you to make sense of the relationship between visuals and words. As in this example, he'll be discussing from the extraordinary adventures of Pentothal.
And so the use of the visual, the use of the text that in the same page comes from other media like the radio, or comes from the mind of the main character while he's asleep, all interconnected. So it takes a lot of time to understand what's going on. So forget about simplicity, forget about this is for a kid. You really need to spend time going up and down and up, left and right and left, reading multiple times all the text that you see and then putting things together. It's an example for me of the complexity of the media.
On the second panel, author Chris Ryle will discuss his new book on his beloved superhero, Daredevil. It's one of the inaugural titles in Bloomsbury Academic and Marvel's New Marvel Age of Comics series.
I'm one of the 4 launch books, and my book is all about Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again. So I'll be discussing all the reasons why I think it's notable and influential and memorable and lasting and important and all of those things.
Ryle was drawn to Miller's dark series about the Daredevil Matt Murdock character.
Was this sort of methodical and just vicious destroying of every part of Matt Murdock's life. And it's just this gripping tale of him getting torn down more and more and more and trying to just hold on to that tiny scrap of what made him a hero in the first place. You know, once you strip away the comfortable home and the money and the job and the support group and the costume and all of that, like, is there still enough inside him to sort of help him rise again and transcend all of that and sort of return to being a hero? And so I found that just such a compelling and kind of mature way to look at that sort of familiar story, but in a very different and like I say, emotionally resonant kind of way.
Ryle will be signing copies of his Daredevil Born Again, as well as his recent graphic novel adaptation of Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
As we head into tonight, I'm tracking another storm system working its way from Northern California off to the south, and that is going to bring, once again, widespread rainfall here across the region, extending all the way down the 5 to the border here as we head throughout this evening and tonight. So for tonight, lows in the 50s. There'll be low clouds near the coast, but we're once again tracking widespread showers here across the region. Temperature-wise here across the rest of the region, once again, just widespread rainfall continuing in the forecast. So from Oceanside down through Chula Vista, we'll be tracking some pretty good rain chances here as we head into tonight. Here's the overall view of Tuesday, tomorrow's forecast. That storm center will work its way over the pretty much central parts of Nevada. But once again, look at this. More rainfall continuing here all the way down through San Diego. So definitely hold on to those umbrellas as we head throughout your forecast on Tuesday. And once again, widespread rainfall here continuing in the forecast. Now on Wednesday, we will start to dry out. That's going to be the good news, is that rainfall continues to work its way off to the east. So for tonight and for tomorrow, definitely keep a chance and keep an eye on that rainfall we will be tracking. So overall, for your extended forecast for the coastal areas, I'll be tracking temperatures in the 60s. Looks like we could see some 70s back in the forecast heading into the weekend. That's that weekend rebound I was talking about. But for Tuesday, sometimes on Wednesday and another batch on Thursday, we'll be tracking some shower chances here. The inland forecast, we'll see shower chances on Tuesday and Thursday. Temperature-wise, will be in the 60s, but once again, another nice warm-up here. Looks like we'll see temperatures back in the 70s heading into the weekend. Now, for your mountain forecast, we'll be tracking that rain and snow primarily on Tuesday. Looks like we'll clear out after that and start to see more sunshine, but not really going to feel like it. Temperatures are going to maintain in the 30s, but we'll see some 40s there on Saturday. And then across the desert, we're going to see temperatures taking a dip as we head into the weekend. But look at that rebound between Friday and Saturday, going from the 50s on Friday to the 70s on Saturday.
Check out the San Diego News Now podcast. Tomorrow, KPBS Midday Edition host Jade Hindman speaks with a UC Berkeley law professor about the future of a scholarship initially meant to raise enrollment and graduation rates for Black students. The podcast goes live Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's been 35 years since Native American Heritage Month was federally recognized. KPBS arts reporter Audie McAfee takes us to a Native American-owned gallery in the Gaslamp Quarter to learn more about their history and culture.
For many Native people, this month is a time to reflect on past transgressions, celebrate the present, and share the histories of 18 tribal nations in San Diego County for a more inclusive future.
The buffalo is something that we really feel is sacred.
Ruth Ann Thorne owns Exclusive Collections Gallery and Native Star Boutique in the Gaslamp Quarter. She says many people still don't know the true history of Native Americans.
For 23,000 years, we bartered and traded with people from all over the world. We learned from their culture, they learned from ours. We took ideas from ancient civilizations and we blended it within our civilization. And so the idea that we just got discovered by somebody who got lost at sea and thought they landed on India, it was really not accurate.
Thorne says one of the most meaningful ways to observe Native American Heritage Month is by taking time to learn about the past.
The truth is that if we actually embrace the past, even if it's a really hard and painful thing for people to look at, it gives us the opportunity to evolve and not continue in that way in the future.
The U.S. Department of the Interior works to preserve the nation's natural resources and cultural heritage. This year, the agency is focused on weaving together Native Americans' past, present, and future, acknowledging historic failings and the work underway to address them. Thorne says responding with anger isn't always the most effective way to correct misinformation about Native communities.
We have a saying, we walk softly. And what that means is sometimes there's a better way of making change than being angry, because we can't change the past. But what we can do is bring more awareness through kindness. And I find that building a bridge with people who are non-Native by just sharing with them things that they may not know is really the best way to bring change.
Thorne's businesses recently hosted a Native American art and fashion show, but she gives space to Native artists in her gallery year-round.
So this is my childhood horse, Yegua.
One of the artists currently featured is Ruben Chato Hinojosa, who draws inspiration from his tribe's traditions.
I'll paint like the bird singers, because I come from my people, the Apaches, we're we're a drum family, right? We dance to the drum like the traditional dancers. We're here, the bird singers. So I've painted some bird singers to honor the Kumeyaay, the Luciano, peoples from here. There's some, I just love it.
Heinehouse's pieces are bright, expressive, and full of movement. One of his favorite works is a painting of a feather, something he hopes uplifts anyone who sees it.
I want you to feel, when you're looking at the painting, either if you need strength that day, then you're like, oh yeah, I feel it. And if you just want happiness, you feel it. I've had people say, it's so calming, and I'm like, yes, I painted that because I needed that. I need that myself.
Native Americans have long used art to share community, spirituality, and identity stories. Thorne says creating space for Native artists is one way she contributes, and other business owners can too.
If you own a business or you're in a position of leadership, something that's very simple is to contact one of the tribes if you're having a major public gathering, and make sure you open up with a land acknowledgement. And you're acknowledging the people who lived there before, but you're also acknowledging the land that supports you every single day.
Audie McAfee, KPBS News.
That's a great story. Well, here is a look at what we're working on for you for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. In some states, more and more home child care workers and nursery schools are shutting down. NPR's Morning Edition digs into the reasons why. And KPBS Midday Edition is talking to racial justice and social equity reporter Katie Hyson about her new investigative podcast called One of Their Own. The first 2 episodes are out tomorrow. You should listen to that. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.